All right, here we are. So let's continue on. I hope the story of Boulder, Colorado, really helped you understand where I'm coming from in regard to using the dog park to create a better relationship. Because by by connecting with your dog in that manner, so that he understands that you are the ruler and the leader, along with all the other human beings in that park, is what matters, not necessarily the other dogs. Now, you can have fun and play, but when I say stop, I want you to stop, which we're going to talk about now. When I want you to come, I want you to come, and all these, all the commands that are relevant to the dog when he's in the park, that he understands that you may use one of those commands at any moment, and when you do, he has to respond. And it's not that you're going to be a tyrant. Again, we take our kids to the playground all the time, and they have a fantastic time, but there's rules and boundaries that need to be adhered to. When I call you, when I tell you to stop, when I tell you to be respectful to the other children, I want that to happen. And in the middle of all that, I want you to have fun and have a great time. So let's talk about some of the dog park issues that we see quite often at dog parks. And I've spent a lot of time at dog parks, observing, watching the interaction between the dogs, watching the interaction between the humans, and then watching all the other things that go along with that. One thing is this issue that due to the fencing, dog owners believe they can let them loose and forget them. The fence is just simply to keep them in. That is really the wrong attitude, right? We think of that fence being, that's just, that's our security. That the dog won't run away. And all we seem to worry about as the humans there is that the dog not run away. So as long as we have that under control, everything else is fine. We don't have to worry about them running away, so we can go to our iPhone or our neighbor that we're sitting next to, or put our elbow on a fence and talk to the person that's on the other side of the fence. If you're on the big dog side and your friend's on the small dog side, that you have this opportunity to talk and not pay attention, because that fence is keeping your dog in. That's all that fence is for, really, right? It doesn't mean that you can disregard what it is your dog is doing. And you watching this, you probably are either shaking your head, yes, I know a lot of people that do that, but I don't do that, which is great. I'm glad you're not the one who does that, that you pay attention to what's going on with your dog. Now, you can have a conversation with somebody and still pay attention to your dog. That is possible. It's just when you become totally engrossed and completely forget your dog, that is an issue, a negative issue. The thought that big dogs and little dogs are different, that doesn't just happen at the dog park. That happens in caring for dogs altogether. And what I mean by that is that little dogs don't need as much attention as the big dogs, because big dogs are the ones that hurt people. Big dogs are the ones that hurt other dogs. Big dogs are aggressive. I'm telling you, small dogs may be the most aggressive of all the dogs on the planet. And so they are just as aggressive, if not more. In some cases, not your case, of course, if you have a small dog. But in that case, the only thing that makes them different is the size, that a big dog can actually hurt a small dog. A small dog does not know he's little, as you all know. The dog thinks that he's a St. Bernard, and in fact, he's a Pomeranian. All right, and so in the dog's mind, there's no difference, but in physicality, of course there is, because they can get hurt. But in regard to the obedience, in regard to what it is we're talking about, there is no difference. The small dog must have the same rules and boundaries as the big dog. When they're running along the fence and fence fighting, that should not be allowed. You should stop your dog from doing that, from chasing the big dog. That is bad behavior. That is negative behavior. It is causing energy to change in the dog park. It is causing the potential of a fight breaking out to increase, because the energy is changing. Now, there's fun run and there's negative run, and that's, it has to be determined by each individual handler. You have to know when the hair is standing up and the eyes look different and the snarling and that kind of stuff. That is going on the side of aggression. That's negative energy. Play bows, jumping, running, and then stopping, and then taking off again. Those are play behaviors. Those are the things that are fine. Let them have their fun. Let them get that energy out. It's when you hear the growling, snarling, and the teeth through the fence and that kind of stuff. That should be handled quickly by the human being, stopped to tell the dog that is inappropriate behavior, and go back to doing something else, redirect the dog, get the dog next to your side, get the dog into a little bit of a timeout, maybe into a sit or a down, and then allow the dog to go back out again. And these are things that need to be controlled. I don't care if the dog is small, and I don't care if the dog is big. All right? That is the boundary of aggression, showing aggression through its body language. Now, people say, my dog does that, but he never would bite anybody. It doesn't matter. It's the energy that is being built in the dog park by this behavior that causes other dogs to become antsy, and then they become aggressive. And that's just the way things are when you have dogs out together, that the energy can change very rapidly based on just simply one dog or one even person coming in that one dog doesn't like. And it needs to be watched and monitored and handled. And it just simply means that when the dog does that, you call him to your side, put him into a sit, let him calm down a little bit, and then send him back out. It doesn't mean correct your dog, leave the dog park. I'm not telling you to do any of those things. It's just monitoring, setting rules and boundaries. Having the dog think. If you're worried about your dog not being tired because he wasn't allowed to run up and down a fence, you are thinking wrong. But make the dog think. That will tire your dog out way more than the running up and down the fence line. When your dog does something negative, call him back, make him do obedience, send him back out, stop him again, bring him back, have him do that. Issue right there is causing energy to be burnt. It's causing calories to be burnt. And that is way more effective than just simply running down the fence. That's just doing dog stuff. And they are so used to that. Make them think, changes the whole program. All right. Too many humans use the dog park solely as a place to socialize with other human beings. And that goes back to the first one I talked about, that it is not, and it can become that very quickly. There's no problem in socializing at the dog park, but that is not the sole reason to go there. All right. So be very careful that you don't get into that space, that you disregard your dog because now it's become a social place for you and the other human beings. That is secondary and needs to be looked at in that way, and that should not change. All right, for the importance of the dog, for the importance of other visitors with their dogs, and the safety of other dogs, and for building the relationship between you and your dog. And I cannot stop going to the playground with children. If that is the sole purpose, your children are going to know that pretty soon too, because you've stopped pushing them on the swing. You've stopped, asking them how they're doing. Is everything okay? You're checking into it. They know, and they're watching. They may be sitting there up on the slide watching and go, you know what? They're spending a lot of time talking to each other and not very much time spending much time with me. And the children know, and so do the dogs. All right. So attention on the dog is horribly inconvenient. That is an issue. It gets in the way. You're busy talking. Hey, I don't have time for my dog. I'm talking on the phone. I'm busy playing Candy Crush. I'm busy doing Facebook post. It's horribly inconvenient. That is a huge issue. Dog parks is an obedience-free zone. No, it's not. Many people there go, this is where my dog gets to be free. No, that is not where your dog gets to go free. Your dog gets to have fun, frolic, have fun, wrestle with some dogs, try to beat another dog to a ball. As long as it's fun, there's no obedience. However, when that changes, when another dog is acting up, there's no better time to get your dog by its side, right? It's not only for the bad dogs that we throw in obedience. It's when we have another dog that's doing something that we may be concerned that our dog might get involved in, is the perfect time to test your obedience. Call your dog to your side, put him in a down, put him in a sit, do whatever it is that is in relation to obedience to proof that issue, that you can control your dog when things begin to go negative. All right, so it's not an obedience-free zone. It should not be an obedience zone. You should throw in some obedience every so often just to check. All right, they're over there playing, having a good time. They're getting ready to pee on a tree. All right, and here, buddy. Come here, buddy. Nice. Get your dog over to your side. Have him sit. Hold it. Nice. Pet him on the head. Good dog. Okay, go have fun. And you're proofing that obedience every so often. It doesn't have to be constant. Just like when we go for walks, we don't encourage people to do obedience for the entire walk. We want our dogs to be dogs. We want them to pee on a tree. We want them to sniff stuff. We want them to be dogs. All right, but dog parks is not an obedience-free zone. The dog park should not be looked at as a place of complete freedom and helter-skelter. And that is sometimes what happens at the dog park. So we got to just be very careful about how we look at it as human beings. And this needs to be brought up and maybe taught. And this is why I put together this program. Where does the human socialization come in then? Well, quality supervision of each dog at the dog park will change everything at home and at the park. And so that human socialization comes after you're building the obedience and the control so that you can have all of this quality supervision at the dog park, and it affects your home, and it affects how you spend time with your dog, and it affects how you take your dog into public. The socialization comes after that. All right, so make sure that you maintain that quality supervision of your dog and fit in the human socialization within those parameters. All right, so it's the quality supervision comes first. The human socialization is secondary, and maybe you don't even have to go there to socialize. All right, but it is a great place for everybody if you can do it with balance. All right. Creating leadership at the park is huge, and that is how it's going to change your relationship with your dog at home. If you can have leadership in the most difficult arena, the dog park, if you can have a dog that comes to your side even when a fight breaks out, if you can call your dog to your side and then have him stay in it down even though somebody else is throwing a ball to their dog, that is creating leadership, and that is huge. And that will expand out to just about everything you do. It will expand out to your relationship. If I have not said this yet, dogs desire a leader. Dogs want a leader. Dogs must have a leader if they are going to be healthy mentally and physically. They desire it. They want it. They need it. All right. So creating a leadership at the dog park is probably the most important place to build this relationship of leadership with your dog. Who are the leaders at the dog park? All the human beings. All the human beings should be leaders at the dog park. Not only you, to your dog specifically, but a human should be able to, let's say that somehow you just ended up at the other end of the field and your dog is engaged in shenanigans with another dog. The human there should be able to say, hey, knock it off, and break that fight up fairly easily. And so we must build in through this teamwork as humans at the dog park, as it is our goal to teach our dogs proper manners, that any human being who says stop, the activity stops. And the dog should respond. So everybody is a leader. Everybody has a responsibility to those dogs. If you see that a human has brought their dog to there and is not has not brought a healthy environment into the situation, then respectfully and in a manner that does not cause fighting, yelling, screaming, and all that kind of stuff needs to be approached and say, listen, I see that you have a dog here that, maybe not used to this environment or is using this environment to fight with other dogs. Can we talk about how maybe we can improve upon that, maybe direct them to this particular a program that we have here, and it's free. You can send anybody here to this program if you want to, and try to have a healthy conversation with this human being, and talk about how important it is to have this leadership role, not only with their dog, but leadership role as a human being within the dog park. And try to have that conversation. If it doesn't go well and it looks like it's going to go poorly, then just leave the conversation and then maybe talk to somebody else there who may know that person to see if you can't get that person on the same page. And then it's up to maybe the board or the whatever governing body of that particular park is to make a decision and say, hey, you know what, we may have to ban somebody because they're just not making this a healthy environment. And that's the way things are supposed to work, right? It happens in apartment living. I've seen it as a police officer. At some point the management has to get involved. It's just the way life is. All right, there has to be a sense of control. Not control. That's the bad word. There's another word that's just escaping me. Of understanding that the dog park is supposed to be a pleasant place for everybody, the dogs, of course, included, and the human beings, and it's not a place to argue about something silly, right? If we can come there with our dogs and have them good quality exercise and socialization mixed with some obedience and some good human relations and socialization, that is the perfect dog park. Right? It's when people get emotional about very, very silly things. And we've seen it, right? We've seen it in every situation. I've seen it at Target. I've seen it in the mall. I've seen, at schools, at kids' sports, at playgrounds. You see parents getting into arguments and fights about the silliest stuff. And I just laugh and think that it's very funny. The human and the humans. Oh my gosh. I think I said it all just a moment ago. This slide originally was meant to be that discussion I just had. And so maybe I'll alter a little bit, but the human and the humans are all, part of the leadership. They can become part of the problem. But if the humans don't get together, and make sure that this is a quality environment for everybody, then it's just not a good place. It's time to find a different dog park, a dog beach, a place that you can go to where the humans are responsible for their dogs, responsible to each other, and have human discussions that it's... And dogs can create a lot of emotion in human beings, and humans really just have to get it together, right? You start getting emotion into a situation that involves two dogs that have got into an altercation. It just can make things 10 times as bad. All right, so the human and the humans are the leaders and are the sole people responsible for how things are handled at the dog park. And so they are the leaders. They are the ones who need to get it together. So how do we get started? How do we get started with this leadership aspect of our relationship between our dog and our humans at the dog parks? It's with obedience. And it begins with the 4 basics, as we talked about before: the sit, down, stay, and heel. And come. Maybe there should be 5 there. I miscounted, because the here is the important one at a dog park, to get that dog back to your side. And you need to make those obedience behaviors solid away from the dog park. There's no way of making them solid in the dog park. It's like in sports. It's hard to be successful in sports if you don't practice. If you don't go to a field where you just work on one specific thing. So in hockey, if you're going to be preparing for a hockey game, you don't go play a hockey game to get prepared for a hockey game, right? You go into the garage with your stick and your puck, and you move it from side to side and learn how to stick handle. You do that one thing really well, right? And get that down. You start to go between your legs, you start to bounce it off things, you start to use the toe of the stick, the heel of the stick, and you start to move it around, right? The next thing is you learn how to skate. You get on the ice, you start skating. You skate forward, you skate backwards, you skate sideways, you do step overs, you stop, you start, and you do all those things separately from the puck handling that we just did. Then you learn positioning. Then you learn how to do a face-off. Then you learn how to stop the puck. Then you learn how to shoot the puck. Then you learn how to slap shot the puck. And you do all those things individually, and then you go into the game. All right, the dog park is the same thing. Let's look at the dog park as the game. So what do we do to get prepared for the game? We do obedience at home. We do obedience at a training facility, much like ours or any other one. It doesn't really matter. You learn how to get those 5 behaviors down solid, and then you go to the dog park, and then now you proof them. You make them solid. You set up for success. Maybe you have a leash on your dog when you're at the dog park for the first couple of visits that you go there. Maybe you have some treats with you maybe to reinforce the good behavior. All right? And that's how you get started. You set a very solid foundation before you get to the dog park. That's how you get the success at the dog park. That's how you set up yourself for a leader at the dog park, by having a solid foundation. Very, very important. Then you want to make sure you establish rules and boundaries both away from the dog park and in the dog park. It's key to a happy dog park. All right? Establishing rules and boundaries both away from the dog park and in the dog park are the key to a happy dog park. Simple as that. So everybody needs to get together. Everybody needs to understand this fact. It's again like having an undisciplined child and taking them into the grocery store and just having them wreak havoc within that store. It's embarrassing. It's rude. It's not a healthy environment for both the child and the parent and the people around you. People get emotional. People start to yell, and it's craziness. All right, so really, really important to establish these rules, and it's up to you as the individual with your dog. It's not up to it's not up to the board. It's not up to the leadership necessarily that you take responsibility for your dog. It's your responsibility. When we teach people at Falco Canine Academy about their dog, everything that we talk about is the responsibility of the people that own or responsible for their dog. Everything is their responsibility. Whether that dog comes to them, whether that dog fights with another dog, whether that dog hurts another human being, it's their responsibility. And they need to make sure that that doesn't happen. They need to be mindful of their dog. They need to have their dog on leash when necessary. They need to have control of their dog when the dog is off leash. Establishing rules and boundaries away from the dog park and at home are the key to a happy dog park. All right. Well, thank you for visiting our membership site, our course on Dog Park Etiquette. I hope it was helpful. Following this video, I'm going to throw in a couple extra bonus videos showing what it is that I think that should be done as you arrive to the dog park, and maybe even some things before you even leave your house. All right, so go ahead and look for those. They may not be in here yet as I'm beginning to film some of those, but check back often as they will be posted over the next several days. All right, we will see you at the dog park. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.